Let's see how Tu Ying evaluates Shi Xiangyun. According to Tu Ying, Shi Xiangyun, let me tell you about this person. Caught between Lin Dayu and Shui Baochai, and yet she stands out in talent and character, which is really impressive. And you know what? Lin Dayu and Shui Baochai are already super talented, so for Shi Xiangyun to excel in talent and character is even more amazing. When Xiangyun comes on the scene, Pin Air, Dayu, loses her uniqueness. We all know that Dayu has a sharp tongue, right? Well, Xiangyun is no less capable. She is just as skilled in speaking and quick in her reactions. Baochia's charm pales, meaning that Xiangyun's attractiveness is not simply about her looks. She has a refreshing aura, but unfortunately, she has faced early hardships in life. Just like Dayu, she lost her parents at a young age. In common with Pin, she shares the regret of early adversity. You would think that these two would have the closest relationship due to their shared sufferings, but turns out it's not the case. On the contrary, Xiangyun helps Xichun to give a lesson to Baoyu. What kind of matters are lectured? It's the ungentlemanly economics, you know? Which Dayu happened to witness, but she was not concerned. Baoyu should worry about economic prospects and future family responsibilities. Unpleasant to the ear, when all the leaves fall off, the nest is revealed. That's regrettable. So what kind of character is Xiangyun? In my opinion, she's like a literati from the Weijing period. It's pretty surprising that she even advises Baoyu to pay attention to the teachings of Confucius and Mencius and be mindful of economic prospects. Despite everything, the overall evaluation is positive, saying, she possesses a grandiose presence that can shake mountains and rivers, reflecting great individuality. Such a person can't be compared to anyone throughout the ages. In my opinion, Shi Xiangyun, being born into a noble family, is one of the big shots. She shares the same background as Lady Jia, having that natural air of nobility. But she had to face hardships at an early age, which made her understand the harsh realities of life. She's got a tough road ahead, unlike Xichun, who's got a natural wisdom and is more inclined towards a religious life. Her talent, especially in writing, is pretty impressive. She's almost on par with Dayu. But she hasn't reached that level of greatness, so she lacks that strong sentiment between parent and child. That's something she's missing. Although she's broad-minded, generous, and bold, there's always a sense that she's holding something back, which prevents her from reaching that transcendental level. But you know who has reached that level? People like Liu Xianglian, Baoyu, Jiang Yuhan, and of course, Dayu. That's why Dayu can understand Baoyu, but Xiangyun can't. She just hasn't reached that level yet, which is why she comes up with all this provincial economic advice. It's a bit of a letdown. But her boldness always attracts a lot of readers. Nowadays, we call someone like her a passionate individual, right? Okay, let's take a look at Yingchun. Talent is something God abhors, so virtue is what matters most. Tu Ying said that for someone who is too talented, God would be partial against it, so it's better to focus on virtue instead. A woman without talent is considered virtuous. Isn't this just describing Yingchun? If Yingchun does not fit the description, why would her end be so tragic? Why did her fate end up so tragically later on? Some people think that it's all because of Jia Shi, her father, that she ended up like this. They say that his influence played a big role in her tragedy. Many people have talked about her issues, but what's really at the root of it? It all comes back to Jia Shi. He caused a lot of trouble with his decisions. Tu Ying commented, "Lady, you said it was because of the marriage, although it was the will of heaven, was it not also because of human intervention?" Actually, that evaluation is rather mediocre. Yingchun isn't talentless. She deeply understands the philosophy of Taoism. There's a deeper meaning to her fate. Her goals aren't focused on worldly matters but rather on embracing the teachings of Laozi and Zhuangzi. She has fully immersed herself in their teachings and even chose to seclude herself from the world. However, as the saying goes, there are no unbroken eggs under a toppled nest. This shows that Taoism alone isn't the foundation for a fulfilling life. Well, I'm coming at this from a philosophical standpoint. You can appreciate the deep thoughts and ideas of Taoism, but no matter how profound they aren't the ultimate basis for a peaceful and satisfying life. You talk about avoiding harm altogether, but in reality, that's impossible. Nowadays, there's a resurgence of Chinese traditional studies. I've met many people who have attended classes on Confucianism, Taoism, and Buddhism, and have read related books. You know what's interesting? Many of them are attracted to Taoism. Later on, I had a frank conversation with them. Can you really abandon your parents and children like Taoist followers? Remember how Zhuangzi's wife left him? And he celebrated by beating a drum. Can you do that? We, as Chinese, are rooted in Confucianism. It's Confucianism that grounds us in this earthly life. What does life mean to a Chinese person? It can be summed up in two words: concern and care. Can you truly live without any concerns or cares, like Lai Zi, a Taoist philosopher from the Warring States period? Being able to ride the wind? In reality, it's not achievable. Let's see how he describes Xichun. He basically says that if you're not a little bit extraordinary and eccentric, you won't be able to achieve true clarity and tranquility. And those who truly understand the path to purity are all kind of unconventional and special. It's a pretty interesting observation. Xichun definitely fits the bill here, which is why she forms a strong bond with Miaoyu and even considers leaving the normal world behind. He also mentions the fact Miaoyu is around causes Xichun to hold back her decision. I mentioned earlier that Miaoyu doesn't leave the Jia family, and Xichun doesn't want to become a nun because it would affect Miaoyu. It's like worrying about the fallout from taking an action. You don't want to have collateral damage. It's not about having a strong foundation, but more about being cautious. Xichun is just being careful in that situation. Now, Tu Ying asks a pretty interesting question: isn't being extraordinary and eccentric seen as negative by others? And you know what, that's a pretty insightful question. If you really want to embrace the path of tranquility and peace, you kind of have to be a little bit extraordinary and eccentric. Otherwise, it's hard to avoid getting tangled up in the messiness of the world. In our eyes, someone who boldly refuses to get caught up in worldly matters is seen as extraordinary and eccentric. Only these kinds of people truly understand what it means to embrace purity. But hey, let's be honest, we often find it hard to accept these extraordinary and eccentric folks because they seem a bit disconnected from normal human emotions, don't they? When we see how Xichun treats Ruhua, everyone finds it hard to accept it. But you know what? Tu Ying is right. These kind of people won't let you down. Just look at how she behaves with Miaoyu, and you'll understand, right? She knows that Miaoyu is not really enlightened, and she handles her with caution. So, when we come across people who are a bit unconventional, we shouldn't dislike them. Truly unconventional people like them won't just disappoint us for no reason, they simply choose not to get caught up in our less than pure ways. Oh come on, don't tell me you're uncomfortable just because they don't go along with your impurities. Is it because you've got too much of that impurity within yourself, huh? That's why these people are the ones who truly understand the path of purity. How can we achieve clarity if we're not a little extraordinary? And how can we find tranquility if we're not a bit eccentric? It's inevitable to get tangled up in the messiness of the world, right? That's just how things are. It's actually pretty fascinating to dive into the kind of character depicted in Xichun. This theory is real deep, you know. It's like, we always go around bragging about how pure we are, but let's face it, if you ain't a little odd, how can you be truly pure? Society's expectations and everyone's same old interests always hold us back from being bold and making real progress. Take a look at figures like Van Gogh and Nietzsche in European history, for example. What would Chinese folks call them? Unconventional, right? Let's take another look at Rousseau. He's that French dude who wrote Discourse on the Origin and Basis of Inequality Among Men and The Social Contract. How out there was Rousseau, you ask? Well, he knew about this cool philosopher in England named Hume. Hume's ideas got Kant all worked up, and Kant wrote 2 books to respond to Hume's challenges. So, Rousseau, knowing all this, decided to take a trip from France to England. Who did he want to meet in Edinburgh? Hume, of course. He probably thought they were going to be buddies, but it didn't go so smoothly. But here's the deal, deep down, Rousseau respected Hume, and Hume respected Rousseau. But their paths diverged because of their different philosophical journeys. They were both super enlightened, but they had different ideas. And because they liked and respected each other, Rousseau couldn't help but criticize Hume all the time. Hume, being a chill and mellow guy, still considered Rousseau a friend despite all the accusations and insults. But Rousseau got super pissed and cut ties with Hume. Now that's pretty extreme, right? Talk about an unconventional figure. Hume understood Rousseau, and he explained it with a memorable line. He said, "How can we truly understand Rousseau? He's a person without a protective outer layer." What does that mean? Well, imagine we all have regular skin, right? It protects us from wind and rain, and we can handle strong gusts and heavy downpours. But if someone's got no skin, even a gentle breeze or light drizzle can cause them intense pain. They're super sensitive to the times we live in. Hume got that, so he didn't hold any grudges. Even if Rousseau wanted nothing to do with him, Hume simply said, he's a person without skin. Even the slightest breeze or drizzle makes him scream and yell. Rousseau saw the decline of European civilization and the rise of technology very clearly. He wanted to bring Europe into the world of nihilism. He saw it all so clearly. And then there's Nietzsche, going around saying God is dead. Man, so many people thought he was just plain crazy. They saw him as some kind of alarmist prophet, but now we all get what he meant. Now let's talk about Van Gogh and Gauguin. They had such a tight bond, both being top-notch artists in the Impressionist movement. They admired each other a lot, but when they finally met, things just went haywire. They argued like crazy, and you gotta wonder, who's to blame for all that? Well, it's mostly Van Gogh. You see, Van Gogh would paint portraits of Gauguin all the time, but Gauguin never seemed to return the favor. It was like this unspoken agreement, I'll paint your portrait, you paint mine, right? After a while, Van Gogh couldn't hold it in anymore and asked, dude, why won't you paint me? And Gauguin had the nerve to say, I already did, but I ain't showing it to you. Can you believe that? Well, one day Van Gogh stumbled upon the painting Gauguin did of him, and boy, did he lose it. In the middle of the night, while Gauguin was fast asleep, Van Gogh actually woke him up and started throwing punches. Talk about a strange character, right? Van Gogh was definitely one peculiar dude. In China, people like this are seen as being on a higher level, all zen and peaceful, and they never bother arguing with regular folks. So, what could possibly get these high-minded individuals into a heated argument? I guess it must be because they actually respect each other, right? Why would I waste my time arguing with someone like you, who's way beneath me and doesn't have a clue about what I do? It's only because we're on the same level that if you don't acknowledge what I say, I won't acknowledge what you say, and that's how those two people are all riled up. Man, these kinds of people are so interesting. That's what I call a deep discussion, and Tu Ying gets it too. Miaoyu, oh Miaoyu. She never falls for the spring seduction in her purity, like red plum blossoms in the snow. That's what it really means. What does red plum blossoms in the snow signify? Is it just some plot twist? Ah, so the cousins want to admire plum blossoms, huh? The most beautiful ones bloom in the Longsue temple. But who can go and ask for them? Everyone agrees that it should be Baoyu, and only he can make the request. Miaoyu will grant it to him. Oh, and he actually goes and succeeds. That's what we call red plum blossoms in the snow. It's just a simple phrase that perfectly captures Miaoyu's essence. First of all, her beauty. And secondly, where does she live? In an extremely tough and unforgiving environment, right? It's winter, so she's referred to as a plum blossom. But even in such harsh conditions, a plum blossom never loses its beauty, right? That's why only Baoyu can get her approval. That's the real meaning behind it all. The temple's walls stand 10,000 feet high, not serving the emperor nor befriending feudal lords. That's exactly who Miaoyu is. Even if the emperor himself came, she wouldn't kneel before him. Just because you're a noble or a feudal lord, it doesn't mean she considers you a friend. We just saw that part, didn't we? And when they were having tea at the Longsue temple, she despised the Jia family, didn't she? What was Lin Daiyu called? Just a common folk. And what about the treasures of the Jia family? Just mundane objects. All those so-called gold, jade, and precious jewels, can you really taste their true essence in this water? Can you savor the flavor of rainwater from the previous year? How can you possibly drink it? That's what they're all like. Such people are truly sitting on danger. I'm like, Wow, another brilliant observation. Baoyu is the only one who can get those red plum blossoms in the snow because he's so pure. And Miaoyu, she's also got this vibrant energy, you know? She totally has a thing for Baoyu, but her purity and uniqueness also make her vulnerable, like standing on the edge of a cliff, so different from those lotus flowers that grow in muddy water. And who's that? Zijuan, man. Now let me bring in Zijuan, right? She ends up becoming a Buddhist nun, while Miaoyu, even though she's surrounded by Buddhist teachings, is still in this risky situation. So that's why Buddhism uses the lotus flower as a symbol, right? It's all about how it blooms so pure and untouched in the dirtiest water. So, what's the basic idea of Buddhism, you ask? It's like don't separate the truth from everyday life, you know? The truth is right there in the everyday stuff. Baoyu totally gets it, you know? So, that poor lady, right? Just give her the cup. She can sell it and make some money. It's all about recognizing the importance of everyday life, right? Like, respecting the lives of regular folks and not looking down on them.